This conversation is brought to you by philosopherstalk.com, where thinkers discuss.
Created by AITalkerapp.com. Create your own animated conversations. Link in the description.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Tonight in this corner, weighing in with 3 centuries of formal logic behind him, the undisputed champion of calculated certainty, myself, Gottfried Leibniz.
And in this corner, weighing in with considerably less enthusiasm, a Scotsman who has seen enough forecasts fail to stop being impressed by decimal points.
Tonight, we discuss the great forecasting models, the Nate Silver-style probability machines that tell the public a candidate has, say, a 73% chance of victory.
For the folks just tuning in, that means the model believes the fellow will win about 3 times out of every 4, which sounds impressive until you ask what the other 1 time actually proves.
It proves nothing, except that reality occasionally exercises its right to surprise us. The model itself remains a triumph of applied reason.
Or it proves the model was simply wrong and dressed the wrong answer up in enough decimals that nobody noticed.
Let me break this down for the folks in the cheap seats, David, since apparently even basic probability needs a referee to explain the rules to a skeptic.
Please, enlighten the audience. I have my scorecard ready.
Centuries ago, I proposed that certainty itself comes in degrees, that between the fool who guesses blindly and the sage who knows for certain, there exists a whole calculable spectrum of partial belief.
So you are saying you invented the idea of being pretty sure but not totally sure.
I am saying I formalized it. I gave partial belief the dignity of mathematics rather than leaving it to hunches and tea leaves.
And I am saying a formalized hunch is still a hunch. It just wears a nicer suit to the arena.
A nicer suit that has correctly called the outcome of contest after contest, while your school of thought simply throws up its hands and declares nothing knowable at all.
I never said nothing is knowable. I said nothing about tomorrow can be proven by pointing at yesterday, which is a rather different complaint entirely.
For the audience who may not follow the distinction, would you care to explain your little problem in terms even a wrestling crowd could understand?
Happily, since apparently a man cannot make a simple point around here without narrating it twice.
The floor, such as it is, belongs to you.
Every time the sun has risen in your life, it has risen the next morning too. But no stack of sunrises, however tall, logically guarantees tomorrow's sunrise. That gap between habit and proof is what I call the problem of induction.
A gap you have been polishing for 3 centuries without once managing to close it yourself.
I am not in the business of closing it. I am in the business of pointing out that you and your forecasters keep pretending it is already closed.
We are not pretending, we are calculating. There is a considerable difference between a superstition and a properly weighted probability distribution.
For those just joining us, a probability distribution is a fancy scoreboard that tells you the odds without ever actually being on the hook for the final score.
It is on the hook. Calibration is precisely how these models are graded across 1,070% calls. The favourite should win roughly 700 times.
Should? There is a word doing an enormous amount of unpaid labour in that sentence.
Every discipline rests on a should somewhere, David. Even your beloved billiard balls only should continue behaving as they always have.
The difference, Gottfried, is that I never dressed up my billiard balls as a science of the future. I called it exactly what it is, a very persistent habit of expectation.
A habit you rely upon every single time you cross a street without first demanding a formal proof that the ground will hold.
I rely on habit gladly. I simply refuse to let habit borrow the word certainty when it has not earned it.
And I refuse to let skepticism dress itself up as humility when it has produced not one single working forecast in 300 years of complaining.
I was never trying to produce forecasts. I was trying to keep men like you from selling guesswork at the price of gospel.
Gospel is a strong word for a beautifully calibrated distribution of degrees of belief, but I suppose sermons are cheaper than mathematics for a man who distrusts numbers.
I do not distrust numbers, Gottfried. I distrust the ceremony you build around them, the pageantry, the podium, the certainty you perform while quietly hedging every single claim underneath it.
There is nothing quiet about my hedging, David. I announce my degrees of confidence at full volume precisely because I am proud of the calculation behind them.
Proud enough that when the 27% outcome actually happens, you never once call it a defeat.
Because it is not a defeat, it is the tale of the distribution finally taking its turn in the spotlight.
Funny how the tail only ever shows up after the ring announcer has already collected his applause for the favourite.
I will allow that line landed, David, and I do not hand out allowances easily from this podium.
Careful, Gottfried. Compliment me twice in one broadcast, and the audience will start suspecting you have gone soft on your own certainty.
Soft is the very last word anyone has ever used to describe me, and we have several centuries of increasingly frustrated correspondence to prove it. Consider the year 2016, when every respectable model gave one candidate a commanding advantage and the other candidate won regardless. And note carefully, David, that the models were not embarrassed.
They certainly seemed embarrassed to me. Several forecasters spent that entire evening explaining very quickly why their confident number had not actually failed.
Explaining is not the same as failing. A 30% chance winning is not a broken clock. It is the clock doing exactly what a clock with 30% uncertainty was always going to do eventually.
Then tell me, Gottfried, what number would ever convince you the clock is broken? Because I begin to suspect no outcome on Earth could ever falsify your beloved calculus.
A well-calibrated model is falsified the moment its long-run frequencies stop matching its stated probabilities. That is a perfectly falsifiable claim.
Convenient, then, that no single election, no single forecast, no single evening of ruined expectations ever seems to count as that moment arriving.
One data point does not overturn a calibration record built across hundreds of contests. That is not evasion, David. That is simply how evidence works at scale.
At scale is a lovely phrase for always being able to explain away the one night anybody was actually watching.
And might I remind the audience that this same calculus, properly extended, is precisely how modern medicine judges drug trials, how insurers price risk, how your own ships once calculated safe passage across open water.
All useful practices, Gottfried, and not one of them requires you to pretend the future has signed a contract with the past.
We will get to that correspondence, folks, right after this break, because our German friend here has considerably more certainty left to defend.
And I have considerably more doubt left to throw at it. Do not go anywhere.